Welcome back, y'all. Ryan Hall here with the weather forecast. Once again, we have some major updates for you on these two huge hurricanes out here in the Atlantic Ocean. Let's get right into it. Okay, so first off, we have to admire what is the beauty of Hurricane Franklin out here to the west of Bermuda. Yesterday, this was one of the most symmetrical storms we have ever seen in the Atlantic Ocean, and it flirted with Category 5 status. Now it is starting to weaken a little bit, but you can still see that this is a very impressive hurricane, and it will send some waves and some rip currents and stuff to the Outer Banks of North Carolina and those places, and it's probably going to cause some impacts in Bermuda. But for the most part, this storm is going to recurve out to sea and not really bother anyone other than some fish. Hurricane Idalia, that's the one that we've got to worry about. And yes, you heard me right, it is now Hurricane Idalia officially. Winds this morning are around 80 miles per hour sustained, with gusts up to 90 miles per hour, and it's just a couple hundred miles south and west of Tampa, Florida. It's flirting with the Keys over here, but we expect this to undergo what we call rapid intensification today as it approaches the Big Bend of Florida, okay? As early as 2 p.m., we're going to see this storm with 100 mile per hour winds, 120 mile per hour gusts, and then as early as 2 a.m. tomorrow morning, this will be a Category 3 major hurricane with 120 mile per hour winds and 150 mile per hour gusts. I think it has the opportunity to continue to strengthen all the way up until it makes landfall somewhere between Cedar Key and Apalachicola. More than likely, it's going to happen somewhere around Perry or closer to the center of this cone. But remember, the cone indicates to us where the eye of the storm will go, okay? It doesn't show the whole impact area. So Tampa and areas south of the cone, you guys are still going to see some big time storm surge. Places like Spring Hill and Hermosa Springs, you guys are also going to see some big time storm surge. And then Apalachicola, Panama City, we're going to see a little bit of storm surge up here, but it's not going to be anything crazy. We're just talking about some tropical storm force winds. But look at this. Idalia is expected to continue to be a hurricane all the way up until 2 p.m. on Wednesday, where it's going to be moving into Georgia potentially as a hurricane. And then we're going to see tropical storm impacts all the way through South Carolina and North Carolina. And here's the crazy thing, okay? Some of the models are starting to indicate to us that it might try to do a loop-de-loop right back towards Florida. It's not completely set in stone just yet, but I'm just telling you what I'm seeing, okay? It is possible that we get a 1-2 punch from Idalia down here. The second punch probably wouldn't be as intense as the first, but we'll talk more about that here in a second. Okay, here's the latest on that official forecast.
Before we continue, guys, like, subscribe, check out my man Ryan Hall down here giving us the weather report. You know what I mean? Give him a quick like, give him a subscribe. Like and subscribe to me too, for real. But I don't know, Ryan. I feel like if it's going back over the ocean, wouldn't that strengthen it? If it was to do a whole 1-2 like he said, because like that's how hurricanes lose their strength, when they go over land and they're not over the ocean. So if it goes back over the ocean, who's to say? Maybe it picks back up, right? That's what I'm thinking, guys, but I'm going to let him continue.
Cone from the National Hurricane Center. Once again, we expect it to become a major hurricane just off the coast of Florida, make landfall as a major hurricane. That's why we have all the red here. Those are hurricane warnings, and then we're going to see that tropical storm all the way out to sea. Here's where we expect to see tropical storm force winds. Now, obviously, right around the landfall area, it's very likely that we see much higher than tropical storm force winds, but the reason I'm showing you this is to show you the size of the storm and the overall potential impact, okay? So all the way out here in towards Panama City, we have a close to a 50% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds. Even on the eastern side of Florida over here, we have up to a 70% chance. And even way down there towards Miami, we've got a 5 to 10% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds from this storm. So all of Florida needs to be paying attention to this. And then, of course, down here into Georgia and South Carolina, the odds are really high that we're going to see tropical storm force winds up there as well. The most deadly part of this storm will be the storm surge, okay? This is a very unique area for hurricanes. You see how Florida kind of bends in like this? Whenever you get a hurricane coming in with this sort of approach like we're seeing with Idalia, you get a wall of water that comes in on the bottom right side, and it's going to come ashore into these marshes and into these little bays and these lowlands, and it's not going to have anywhere to go. It's not going to be able to go back out in the sea because we're going to have 100-mile-an-hour winds pushing it onto land, and we're going to probably see several miles of water inundation. Honestly, in a lot of places that that we saw some storm surge with Michael. With this one even farther south, all the way down towards Tampa, we could see 4 to 7 feet of storm surge, maybe all the way down towards Charlotte, Naples, 2 to 4 feet. So this is something that we have to really watch out for, as this is the reason why you're being asked to evacuate. This is the most important part of this storm. 8 to 12 feet possible in some of the higher impact areas, and that includes, unfortunately, Cedar Key. Beyond the storm surge and the waves and the wind, the rain is going to be a big problem. We've got a big moderate risk of flash flooding from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way up to Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, South Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina. I do believe we're going to be seeing several life-threatening instances of flash flooding in this general vicinity. So if you live anywhere in the yellow or red on this map, you need to be watching those creeks and streams closely, because they're going to rise and they're going to rise fast. And guess what? We're not done. We're not just talking about waves, winds, and rain. We've also got the chance for severe weather and tornadoes embedded inside of Hurricane Idalia as it makes landfall. Slight risk of severe weather today from Tampa all the way up towards Tallahassee, and a marginal across almost the entire peninsula of Florida. That is driven by a 5% probability of seeing tornadoes. Tropical tornadoes are no strange thing. They happen in every hurricane, so we're going to be watching this closely today. But tomorrow, the area where those tropical tornadoes could occur increases almost exponentially. Once again, from near Tampa up through Jacksonville, up towards North Carolina, we have a slight risk of severe weather. Once again, on Wednesday, promoted by a 5% probability of seeing a tornado or two. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see a little bit of a 10% area show up here. And that just means that there's a 10% probability of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a given point in any of the shaded areas. And that's obviously much higher than a typical day. So you should be on lookout and paying attention to those warnings as they come through. Okay, let's get down into the nitty gritty. Let's look at those forecast models. This is the HWRF, a fantastic tropical forecast model that's now been loaded up with all the latest Hurricane Hunter data. And this thing is showing 119 mile per hour sustained winds around 11 p.m. tonight. So that shows you how much of rapid intensification we're going to see because of those record warm sea surface temperatures in the Gulf. And then it doesn't slow down. Okay, we're all the way up to 125 mile per hour winds potentially as it gets into the Big Bend of Florida around 5 a.m. Wednesday, August 30th. And then some of those really strong winds start coming ashore as soon as 8 a.m. right before landfall near 9 to 10 a.m. somewhere up there to the east of St. Mark's. Now, this is a little bit farther west than what I think we're going to see. I do think we're going to see a little bit more of an easterly landfall here. I could be wrong, but a lot of the models are starting to trend more west now, which really just gives this storm more time to be over water, which is not a good thing at all. And then, of course, those winds continue into Georgia. They do start to weaken a little bit as the storm gets more over land. But notice how those tropical storm force winds start ramping up again, especially along the coastal areas as the storm moves off to the east. So what does this thing look like through our future radar on the NAM model? You can see it spinning around down there in the Gulf around 9 p.m. tonight. We're going to start to see these bands of really strong thunderstorms come through between 10 and midnight tonight. They're going to go all the way up the peninsula of Florida. Some of these might have embedded tornadoes, but mostly just strong gusty winds and heavy rain. The real tornado threat comes from these bands, okay? You see how you have these groups of supercells kind of moving up on the lower right side of the system. That's where we're going to be watching for waterspouts and tornadoes. It looks like the majority of that activity will be happening from around 4 a.m. tomorrow until, I would say, probably noon to 1 p.m. The NAM is also showing landfall somewhere between 9 and 10 a.m. And this is, once again, a really good indication of isolated supercellular activity in the outer bands of the hurricane that could cause tornadoes. So Tampa Bay, once again, even though you're not getting the main part of the storm, even over towards Orlando, you guys are going to be under the gun for potential severe weather as a result of Idalia. And then the storm comes ashore, and we are talking about that really heavy rain on the northern side. We're going to have some flooding rains in Georgia around 3 p.m. But once again, on the front right quadrant of the storm here, we do have to watch out for these supercells, once again, for the potential for embedded tropical tornadoes. So here's the full progression. Once again, Hurricane Idalia, what that could look like on radar. And the main concern here is going to be the rain. Okay, this is the official outlook from the Weather Prediction Center as to how much rain we could see. And we're talking about up to 10 inches of rain in some of those brown areas there. This water is going to fall very fast, and it is going to cause flash flooding, which a lot of times can be the most deadly part of a storm like this, especially after landfall. Okay, so my plan for Hurricane Idalia, as far as a live stream goes, starts as soon as this extra video is over. We are going to do a live stream today, kind of like a pre-coverage, going over the
Okay.
forecast, probably around 4 to 9 p.m. tonight.
Oh, Trinidad. Trinidad's right here. Aha. I spent almost 11 years of my life in Trinidad, gang. If you didn't know, now you know. I moved a lot actually. I've lived in 5 countries. Seen quite a bit, done quite a bit. Have some friends all over, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, yo. As you see, I'm finally adding some color to the little baby drawing. You know, that's what I'm doing right now. I got this